And we have His Holiness Bhakti Prabhupada with the Damodara Swami Maharaj with us. And it's a very, very special topic, what it truly means to be human. And so we all know that the human form of life is very, very rare. Right? Does anybody know how many species of life?
Hey, you're stealing what I'm going to talk about.
Just to make sure you're awake.
I sent you the bio.
Yes,
okay, because we're going to go on till 11 o'clock. I'm sorry, I don't mean to in any way minimize the importance of your input. But just we're all working under the time factor.
Sure, I guess.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prabhu. So it's nice to see the two families together. It's like a grand family reunion. Very nice. So just we are so fortunate to have with us Maharaj, and also we are thankful to the our host Vinit Prabhu and Shivani Mataji. I don't know where they are. Thanks for opening their doors for us and cooking for us, and Rohan Prabhu, Shruti Mataji for facilitating, coordinating so much things behind the scenes goes. They are all leading, and thank you very much. And warm welcome to our friend Ramdas and Sita. Right there. Brother and sister. So they are from Syracuse, young couple. They are trying their best to preach Krishna consciousness in Syracuse area. So warm welcome to them as well. And without further ado, just a little, so much to talk about Maharaj, but I just condensed a little bit. So Maharaj, born in 1946, and he used to go to the Matchless Gift. Anyone been there? The first time where Prabhupada started. So he used to go there, and he was the first batch. He used to chant with Prabhupada. So that's so fortunate we have with us, Maharaj. And 1976 and 77, he took two initiations from Prabhupada, first and second. And since then, have been traveling, especially Latin America countries, and then spreading the Krishna consciousness movement. And Maharaj currently is serving as a regional Latin America governing body. Maharaj also initiated a spiritual master within ISKCON society. So without further ado, let us all welcome Maharaj by chanting one time Hare Krishna Nama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Now I welcome the Vinit Prabhu. Can you come please? To decorate Maharaj with the garland. And we are so fortunate to have with us ours is a special Bhakti Vriksha, and because we have two Prabhupada disciples here. We have Muli Vadaka Prabhu also. So let's Dhananjay Prabhu, please welcome Muli Vadaka Prabhu. He is first time with us in the Bhakti Vriksha program. So,
Om Jnana Jnana Shalakaya Chakshunamanitam. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. we usually ask this question of anybody here, especially coming from the western side, anyone here first time in a Hare Krishna meeting? No, everyone has some experience. Okay. So the topic tonight is what it takes to be actually human. And one thing we'll touch on, it doesn't mean that just because you have a human body that you're human. You're human. It's not as simple as that. There are some songs that we have in the Vaishnava songbook, and we probably wouldn't have time to go through it. There's some songs that are exactly on this point about the rarity of getting a human form and becoming actually human and how we should take advantage of it. There are some cartels, man. Take this very brief. I was going to do the whole thing. I didn't have time to practice it at all. And besides, the time is constrained still.
Maharaj is audible to all of you, right?
No.
Can you come a little closer, please?
If I were a little more technically competent, I'd figure out how to get this onto my phone instead of a big computer. In Miami, I would have just printed it out. Ajahure mana Srinandanandana Abhaya Charana Rajendore
Ajahure mana Srinandanandana Abhaya Charana Rajendore
Tulabhamanava Janama Satsange
Durlabhamanava Janama Satsange
Tulabhamanava Janama Satsange
Durlabhamanava Janama Satsange Karohe Bhava Sindore.
Just worship the lotus feet of the son of Nanda, which make one fearless, having obtained this rare human birth, cross over the ocean of worldly existence by associating with saintly persons. There's another song. This song is by Govinda Das Kaviraj. There's another song by, more well known to us, Bhakti Thakur, called Ubila Aruna. And I don't want to keep you all up till midnight, so I'll just sing a couple of the stanzas, although the whole song is permeated with like a wake-up call of the importance to have a human form. Udilo Anna Pura Bhago Vijamani Gora Atmani Jage
Udilo Anna Pura Bhago Vijamani Gora Atmani Jage.
Does somebody know the two beat on the number? The two beat, like it's a waltz. And if someone knows this nicely on harmonium, they can also do that if they like, but it's, no speculation, no speculation. Jai Bajalo Ko Gana Gana Nata he ilhajero. Some of the translations. It's called Udile Aruna. The song is actually to be sung at dawn. The sun is rising. Very careful. So, the first verse is, when a tinge of red on the eastern horizon heralded the sunrise, the jewel of the twice-born, Lord Gaurasundara, immediately awakened. Taking his devotees with him, he went all over the countryside, visiting the towns and villages of Nadia. You have like another place for the playroom for the children?
Backyard is okay?
Next translation. The Madangas Rizani, Tatai. Let's go with Ano, how do you say it? Ano poetics word. The word sounds like what it is. So it's tatai, it sounds like the sound. The cymbals chimed in time, and Lord Gauranga's footbells jingled. Jingle is also poetic. As his golden form trembled slightly in ecstatic love of God. Next one. Lord Chaitanya called out to the townsfolk, "You spend your nights uselessly sleeping and your days decorating your bodies. Now just fill your mouths with the vibration of the holy names, Mukunda, Madhava, Yadava, Hari, chanting without offense." I'll go through all the translations, it's just a little more, even though we didn't chant the Bengali. You have achieved the rare human body. Don't you care for this gift? Right on topic. Don't you care for this gift? If you do not serve the darling of Yashoda now, great sorrow awaits you at death. Each time the sun rises and sets, a day passes and is lost. Then why do you remain idle and refuse to serve the Lord of the heart? Understand this essential fact. Life is temporary and full of all kinds of miseries. So take shelter of the holy name as your only business. Desiring to bless all souls, the sweet names of Krishna, name of Krishna has descended to the material world and now shines like the sun in the sky of the heart, destroying the darkness of ignorance. And the last stanza. Drink the pure nectar of the holy name of Krishna and thus satisfy the soul of Bhakti Vinod. There is nothing but the holy name within all the 14 worlds. Sri Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Jagat Guru Sri Prabhupada. So you can see it's a kind of a reminder to us of an incredible lineage. We have a lot to live up to. We have, just these amazing personalities. Even going back further, Madhavan Puri, to speak of Lord Chaitanya, and the ISKCON Swamis. It's not a made-up story. It's a relatively recent lives of great souls, and when it comes all the way up to Bhakti Vinod Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his son, and of course initiation from Gauriya Das Babaji. Then it comes up to our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada. And then, believe it or not, there are still some very highly empowered personalities. You have to become advanced enough, we have to become advanced enough to be able to discriminate. Not critically, but to discern, to know. Because sometimes you can't judge a book by the cover. Sometimes you have to. Prabhupada would say that the important thing is hearing. Like, what does the person say? So I hope I don't put my foot in my mouth. But it's what a person says, how he speaks. Prabhupada told me his first devotees at Hippies. Be careful. Now, you're all after the big beard. You like the big beard. It's not so. Beard is not this. What is spoken, what the so-called sadhu is spoken. Is it too loud, or should make it further away, or something is wrong? It's okay. Is this all right?
No, it's fine. Now it's better.
Now it's even better. Okay. Well, now it's better. So. This is a very important topic. Let's see if I have references here. So we'll try to approach it from a few different angles. You'll have to excuse me that my preparation for classes never get finished. So I go as much as I can and then I dive into it. So my classes are usually a combination of notes, and then we say in America, we say ad lib, or speak more or less impromptu, or at least extemporaneously. So I did select some references here. And the first topic is cosmological background. What's the background of all this? And remember, the theme is how did we qualify to be actually human? And the considerations we have is the unique aspect of human life, why it's so special, its rarity, and the responsibility, the privilege as well as the responsibility of having a human body. And what does it mean? The main thing, getting to the title of the topic, is what does it take to actually be human? It's not only just having the biological body of a human being. It doesn't mean one. Prabhupada would use the term sometimes, Tri Padu Pashu. Who knows what that means? Two-legged animal. Strong language. But, hey, I got 2 legs, and I make a lot of money, and so I'm not an animal. Please tell me I'm not an animal. No, I can't tell you that you're an animal. Two-legged animal. If we're not actually following Vedic culture or some Western reflection of the Vedic culture originally coming from India, originally coming from the spiritual world. So, Prabhupada would often quote this verse. He would quote it for the purpose of, as I'm sure Radhika people will both listen to, each of us listen to many, many classes of Prabhupada. Prabhupada would come back to this verse, but his purpose of quoting is a little different from mine this evening. He would quote this verse just to show the Vedas are so precise. They don't say 950,000. Yeah, he does repeat it. Exactly 900,000. Exactly, so this is Vedic knowledge. It's not more or less. And without the Vedas, how can you know and count how many species there are and get to some exact numbers? So it's Jalaja Navalakshani Stavada Lakshagam Shati Krimayo, what is it? Rudra Sankyaka Pakshinam Dasalakshanam Trim Shal Lakshani Parshavaham Chatur Lakshani Manusaham. There are 900,000 exactly, 900,000 species living in the water. There are 2 million non-moving living entities such as trees and plants. There are 1,100,000 species of insects and reptiles and 1 million species of birds. As far as quadrupeds are concerned, 4-legged animals, there are 3 million varieties, and there are 400,000 human species, which is a much smaller number than given. So this touches on the rarity of human life, but it also gives the idea of creation, and more specifically in terms of the cosmological background. 11.3.3. If I don't say anything different and I just say the numbers, so some of you no one's taking notes, but it's kind of, I feel like it's proper to give the reference to, where you get that. So if I don't say it, it means Srimad Bhagavatam, 11.3.3. Shri Antariksha Uvacha Ibir Bhutani Bhutatma Mahabhutai Mahabhuja Sasajo Chavachan Yadvyaha Svamatratma Prasidaya. I don't expect anyone to know this verse. If anyone does, I'm going to get off my obeisances for your scholarship. But it's Pushkar. But it's, here's the translation. Sri Antariksha said, O mighty armed king, is that King Mimi? By activating the material elements, the primeval soul of all creation has sent forth all living beings in higher and lower species, so that these conditioned souls can cultivate either sense gratification or ultimate liberation, according to their desires. So it's kind of built into the creation sometimes. Why so many species? Just by chance, survival of the fittest, and forget it. It's because there are 8,400,000 species. Why? Because there are 8,400,000 different desires. All boiling down, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, but there are so many styles how to do that. Just think of all the animals and think of all the humans, and I'm sorry to say, but so-called humans who also have so many different styles of how to eat, how to so. When we talk about culture, basically, it's how the proper way to eat, to sleep, to mate, and defend. That has a lot to do with the whole idea of culture. I won't read the Sanskrit. There's 11.9.28. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, expanding His own potency, Maya Shakti, created innumerable species of life to house the conditioned souls. To house them, in other words, to embody them. Yet by creating the forms of trees, reptiles, we just heard the numbers, right? By creating the forms of trees, reptiles, animals, birds, snakes, and so on, the Lord was not satisfied within His heart. Then He created human life, which offers the conditioned soul sufficient intelligence to perceive the absolute truth and become pleased. Katato Brahma Jigyasa, the very first verse of Vedanta Shitra. Now in this human form of life is the time to inquire into the absolute truth. 3.30.34. Yes, we're not playing bingo, folks. 3.30.34. Ahastanara lokasya yavatir yatana dayaha kramasya samanukramya punar atra chuchi. Having gone through all the miserable hellish conditions and having passed in a regular order through the lowest forms of animal life prior to human birth, and having been purged of his sins, one is reborn as a human being on this earth. Maybe one more on this. 7.13.25. I'll skip the Sanskrit. In the course of the evolutionary process, which is caused by fruitive activities due to undesirable material sense gratification, in other words, undesirable material sense gratification, that means vikarma, sinful, disregarding the scriptures, undesirable material sense gratification, or in one sense, all material sense gratification is not very auspicious. I have received this human form of life, which can lead to the heavenly planets, to liberation, to the lower planets, or to rebirth among human beings. This is the Python man speaking. Prahlad Maharaj, in his maturity, he's on tour and he comes across this amazing personality, just kicking back, just lying there, just seeming very lazy. And then, but Prahlad Maharaj could see that he was a self-realizer. So he began to question him. And this is one of his answers. All right. One thing I wanted to mention, this would be more like an introductory point, is that about 12 years ago, 14 years ago, I can't keep track. When I was traveling, and I was in an airport, and I saw a magazine with an orange cover. Now, I didn't buy it because it has an orange cover, and that's my favorite color. But it cost $7. It would be almost sinful to spend $7 on a material, mundane, literature. You don't go there. So, what's your name? And where did we meet?
Trying to think when. I'm not sure if we have met.
Maybe we haven't met. Okay, you seem so friendly. You must be a happy devotee. Okay. So there I was in the airport, and it cost $7, which is, you see a lot for a magazine, a tiny magazine. But I had to buy it. Why did I have to buy it? Not because the color was orange, which it was, but because the title and the whole magazine, I looked at it and I could see, I gotta get this, because the whole magazine was giving, very scholarly, scientific reasons what is special about being human. And it's too bad I don't have it with me to show and tell. And I read it a couple of times and went through all the articles. And they come up with all kinds of speculations or ideas. What is really unique about humans? And they would argue, well, that's not really. Like, for instance, speech. Speech is not a monopoly of a human being. You know, the animals have their language. We all know that. So there's that. And one even was so nonsense. They even said that the unique aspect, or they were questioning, could it be consciousness? Now that's really, I won't say stupid, but it's really stupid. A really ignorant thing to think that the animals don't have consciousness. Now, of course, you can excuse them for saying that, because even a great church father, such as I believe St. Augustine, he had this cockamamie idea. He had this ridiculous idea that the animals are just machines without any. And then we had a philosopher by the name of l'homme machin, man the machine. Now in Bhagavad Gita it says that the material body is the yantra rudani. It's a machine. It says like a machine, and Prabhupada said it is a machine. You can hear on lecture. But doesn't mean that we are that machine. We just have that machine. We're working. It's a great machine. My mind wants to think of the about where it goes, voice stuff. So anyway, in this magazine they couldn't catch at all. It was like the idea that human life is meant for solving the problems of life. That yoga avitit jashma loka praiti sakripana, that one who does not solve the problems of life, which is birth, death, disease, and old age, janma mrityu jara vyadi, as a human being, one who does not solve the problem of life as a human being is no better than the animals, cats and dogs, who leave their bodies without understanding the science of self-realization. No better. We're called kripana. Kripana means we have this very valuable gift. We heard that in the song. Very valuable gift of this human form of life, but we don't know what the value is. The value is that the animals are actually more expert in some ways, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Say defending. No muss, no fuss. If you're a tiger, you've got these claws built in. You don't have to go and ask for a defense budget, or demand a defense budget. You have big fangs and whatever you call it, huge teeth, and your defense is built in. You have it by the laws of nature. Whereas human beings, they want to defend. They go ahead and they make this Bhavamanchugra karmana shayaya jagatohita. Enough said. Horrible, unbeneficial works meant to destroy the world. And in the purport to that verse, there's 16:8, I believe, or 16:9. Srila Prabhupada says this anticipates the invention of the atomic bomb, or the nuclear bomb. And you see in the Bhagavad Gita that a whole full-page picture of a big nuclear explosion going off and all sinful activities being devoured by the flames. That's a whole other topic. But so anyway, let's move forward here. Remind me before I go. Gotta find it. Okay, I lost something very important, but it's somewhere in the house. I'm not going to tell you what it was. We'll find it somewhere. Maybe it's somewhere closer than I think. So, a little bit on cosmology. Human life is very special, a great privilege and opportunity, but also a great responsibility. recited the complete verse, 11:20:17. The human form is an essential and actual difference between us and the animals that the magazine didn't catch. What's it called? Time magazine. It's not just the big brain, but rather the intelligent choices that such a human permits. Hitopadesh warning. I heard this in 1966 from Swamiji, Srila Prabhupada. And although I didn't immediately shave my head and, put on a dhoti, and probably anyone had a dhoti at that time, but it really was a tremendous, you can say the seed was planted. It was a tremendous beginning of what you can call liberation. Ahara nidra vayamaitanam cha samanam etat pashubir narana dharmo hitesham adiko vishesho. Adiko vishesho, that special ability that humans have. Dharmena hina pashubir narana pashubir samana. That without putting aside dharma, dharmena hina, leaving that aside, then one is no better than an animal. Again, vipadu parshu. Because both animals and humans, and even real humans, we have that in common with the animals. Eating, sleeping, and for most of you, mating, and defending. That is in common. So just because we defend, or so-called defend, it's talking about collateral damage, in nuclear war, it's all one big collateral damage. Finish. That we defend in a more sophisticated way. Or sexes engaged in a very beautiful bed, or something like that. And the Beatles, they said, well, why don't we do it in the road? John Lennon is naughty in that respect. But most human beings, they don't want to do it on the road. They want to have a nice hotel, nice house, apartment, nice bed. But the essence is the same. You can see the animals, even in Vrindavan. You see the monkeys. They're not enjoying any less than you Hefner used to enjoy. Maybe you're still trying to enjoy it. It must be about 90 now. He's still on the planet. He's not like hopping around. Some of you don't know that just as well. So that's important distinction there. And so I heard that from Swamiji, and it was a great wake-up call. It still took me a long time to Prabhupada said it's not easy to make a new man. Before you could train him, you have to tame him. And that's particularly apropos for someone like me. I would come and cause havoc. Prabhupada was so deft and so kind and so careful to not drive me away. Although if it were anyone else, I would have been driven away. So LSD had something to do with it, but that's not an excuse. The rarity, Nirdeham Adyam Sulabam Sadulabam, which will be cited soon, a complete verse. You can say on the one hand it's very rare, that's often mentioned. Prahlad Maharaj preaching to his schoolmates and talks about the rarity of human birth, so rare. You have to use it properly, even from Komadam Acharit Pragno, even from the tender age of childhood. But then again, it's not rare, and again, it's easily achieved. Sulabam is very easy. So how does that reconcile? Well, it's very easy because all you have to do is wait through these millions of species of life. And after many millions of years, Hey, welcome back to the human form of life. Here we are. How nice. But before you know it, if we're not careful, then down we go again. The essential and actual difference between us and the animals. Next subtopic. Not just the big brain, but rather the intelligent choices that such a brain permits. Stimulus and response. This is very simple, obvious distinction. The animals, like Pavlov's dog, the animals, you get stimulus, the response is going to be there. The only exception if there's another stimulus, like you beat the dog and not, and then the dog may start shaking and hesitate to do what he would have ordinarily done, like chew up the sofa or something like that. So, except if there's some special circumstance, there's a stimulus, the animal will react. It's not that the animal has a conscience and start to think, maybe I better not do this, or maybe it wouldn't be nice. There's no question like that in the animals. Whereas in the human beings, like our mothers used to tell us, if you become very angry, before you say anything, count to 10. Or at least take a deep breath. That's human. That's human life. Or at least that's the beginning of human life. I said something wrong, now I long for yesterday. I mean, just you just make a mistake, your whole life could change. Just for speaking without counting to 10 first. You get very angry at someone and you say something, and then there's a divorce. So who knows what could happen. So, so this human prerogative, it's 9 o'clock. How much? What time do we? 15 minutes?
Yeah, 9:15.
And then we can still have questions?
Couple of questions.
Good questions. All right, I'll try to move it a pace. What about the role of instinct? You hear about instincts in animals and instinct in human beings. Well, the instinct of animals is very obvious. The animals don't have to make ethical choices, or they don't have to have difficult decisions in life. It's all instinct. An animal can't perform any sin. He's protected by not having any free will. Animal has no free will. And free will comes when you have human life. I guess that's another thing I should have mentioned, the speciality of human life, that we have a chance to exercise our free will, which is inactive, is not active in less than human life. So instinct. So how does instinct work for human beings then? We know how it works for animals. You see cats, they like to, what is it called, preen, or they lick their tongues are dry, if I remember correctly. They're always, whatever that's called, they're cleaning themselves with their dry tongue, they're always looking there. So, they have to go to beauty school, or the mothers have to teach them in a special way. No, it's instinct. They just do that. The squirrel instinct, he buries the acorns for the winter time. How does instinct work in human beings? Do we have instinct? Not really. We have to have culture. We have to culture how to eat, how to sleep, how to eat. We don't. It's not a done thing. It's not like just you're born in a human body and you're going to have a certain, how to do these things. You can do it in the mode of ignorance, in the mode of passion, in the mode of goodness. You hear about foods in the 17th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. We don't have time to describe it. Some of you are familiar with the stark differences between foods in the mode of goodness as opposed to those passion or ignorance. So we could say that the only equivalent of of instinct is how the particular combination of modes that's affecting you comes through to the surface. So that could be a substitute principle instead of instinct. Or you can go to, I wouldn't go that way, but good old Sigmund Freud, and we can say, well, maybe id is an equivalent of instinct, just that primordial desire or something that we have. But basically, we can't depend on instinct. We have to depend on Guru and Krishna and Veda, or at least Western equivalent. We have to depend on that, because we're not going to make it just by, if it feels good, do it. There's a quote, Jerry Rubin, what was his name? Rubin, which was his first name? One of the leaders of the hippies. It was Addie Hopkins. Jerry Rubin, yeah, I heard in person. If it feels good, do it. And Addie Hopkins, we'll tell that story later. But that was that's not very intelligent. You get in a lot of trouble with that. He samspashajaboga dukayonaya evate ajantavanta kunteya nateshu lamate buddha. That one who is intelligent does not take part in the sources of misery, dukayonaya, which are due to contact with the senses and the sense object. You can refer to in chapter 18, text 38 or so, happiness in the mode of passion. In the beginning, it's just like nectar, and then it becomes poison. Taste of honey. So, the wise man does not delight in contact, because they were sources of misery. So the really wise person, the Buddha, he does not delight in such things. More intelligent. So we shouldn't, it's not like if it feels good, do it. That's why children need to be guided. We can't be, because for them it's all about if it feels good, do it. If it's going to be fun, do it. And then they get a little older in adolescence, and then there'll be big problems if there isn't any proper guidance. So we hippies we're not blaming our parents exactly, but they didn't know much about how to deal with desires and children, and how permissive and how strict to be. Stimulus and response. I mentioned that. Bhagavad Gita gives warnings about that one should not, the one who withdraws his senses from sense objects, just like the tortoise withdraws his senses, he's known as steady intelligent. And what's the translation to 268? Tasmad Mahabaho Tani Sarvasha Indriyanindriyarte Jastasya Pragna Pratistita. The one who withdraws his senses from the objects, keeping them under full control, he's known as a man of steady intelligence. But the opposite of that is a very interesting verse that describes the it's an analogy with a river, and in some rivers there's these big grasses on the banks, called stamba, because they're really tall and they suck up all the water, and the water becomes more shallow because there's so much really big tall grass, 10 feet tall, and just sucking up the water. So that's an analogy of how when one's senses and mind become too attracted to sense objects, then unfortunately one's intelligence gets sucked up. One loses his intelligence, just like those grasses. just a little like impromptu speaking, because we don't have much time anyway. So the another difference between human beings and animals, and when I mention these differences, it should also answer the question: what does it take to be a real human being? And it's like Heidegger kind of got it right, almost, that we should be aware of death. It's another thing. Animals, until they're just about to get their head chopped off, they just don't. They're eating grass and smelling each other, and while they're waiting in line to be slaughtered, even after that. As a human being, it shouldn't be that we have to wait till the doctor tells us we only have a month to live because of terminal cancer. It shouldn't be. And if anybody's in that category here, no offense. But, we're all Mriyaman Anam, just like Maharaj Pariksit. He knew he had 7 days. We don't know if we have 7 minutes. And that's a fact. So, and as we get older and older, it becomes less, oh, that's the philosophy. No, that's not the philosophy. Finished. Any moment. Oh, Maharaj is giving a lecture and he died while he was giving a lecture. He couldn't finish the lecture. So, we have to be careful. That's another difference. Human beings, they are awareness, being towards death is an expression. They have an awareness of the inevitability. Nothing is as sure as death, Prabhupada would put that little phrase. So there are various so what does it take to be a real human being? Again, that point is very important. And just because you have a human body, or we have human body, doesn't mean that makes us human. That's why we have, okay, here's a good one for you. Jana, this is a verse, I can't tell you any number because the source is unknown. Janabe Janeba Janabe Sabbe Pita Matapaya Krishna Guru Nahi Mile Bhaja Hari Ke. It sounds like Bengali. Birth after birth, one receives a mother and father. But if one gets the benediction of Guru and Krishna, he conquers the material energy and returns back to Godhead by worship of the Lord. That's why it's called like second birth, Dvicha. And it specifically refers to what we call Brahman initiation, but even Harinama initiation. It's like a second birth. And then that not only relieves one, at least temporarily, if you're not serious, it's only temporary, but at that moment you're free from all your bad karmas, all your karmas. You're starting a clean slate. That's the guru and the Vedas. It's like the mother and the father and the mother, and that's called Dvicha, second birth. So that is also required to become a human being. I'm not saying if someone didn't get initiated, they're an animal. It's not that. They're taking shelter of, especially we recommend Srila Prabhupada, and taking shelter of the cyclic succession. And even if one is not yet initiated, but we're not going to call you an animal because you're not initiated yet. But it's we have to have, at least in spirit, we have to have that second birth. So the last thing I'll mention is one more reference that Nirdeham Adyam Shilabam Sadulabam Pravam Sukalpam Karnadadam Mayanuku Yena Navashvate Ritam Kuman Bhavadbir Nataret Sa'atmaha. If we have a human body and we don't use it as a human being, we don't try to, first of all, become human and also transcend the cycle of birth and death, then we're a killer of the soul. And it's described that Nirdeham Adyam Sulabam Sadulabam. that it's again a contradiction, that the human form of life is sudurlabham, it's very rare, but at the same time doesn't require any special effort to get it. It just happens, it's not like the animals have to do some juggyas or something, so I want to pray so I can get a human birth, It'll happen automatically in due course of time, maybe a long time, but eventually here we are. So it's rare, but it's easily achieved as long as one doesn't become bewildered by how much time it takes. And plavam sukalpam, that the human body is compared to a very strong boat. Plavam sukalpam, a very sturdy boat. Boat means for crossing over the ocean or breaking it. And guru karna dharam, what does that mean? The guru is compared to the captain of the ship, karna dharam. There's that verse, we accept you as the captain of the ship for those who want to cross over the dangerous ocean of Kali. I think Sutta Goswami or Sonaka Rishi to Sutta Goswami. So that's two, and then there's another one, Mayanu Kuyena Nabashvataritam. And the Vedic scriptures are compared to the favorable breezes. We're talking about sailing ships, not steam, oil, something. So these are three facilities that Krishna gives the living entity. Number one, the human form, the good ship. Number two, the guru, good captain for that good ship. And number three, the Vedas, the favorable winds. Let's say guru, sadhu, shastra. And human form. Sometimes animals can become nice devotees, very rarely. Lord Chaitanya didn't have a problem making the animals chant and dance and Charikanda forest. And Srila Prabhupada did that also. Sometimes, like Lord Ramachandra, he harnessed a whole army of monkeys. They were special monkeys, but still vanaras, and to defeat Ravana, including Hanuman. Was very effective. So Srila Prabhupada, he also harnessed a whole army of monkeys, the hippies. You don't mind if I say this again? It's such a telling story. My father Herb, bless his soul, I just love this story. I'm sorry, you heard it 10 times. So I came to, I was becoming a devotee, and I already had tilak, and maybe I was even wearing a dhoti. I was just in the process of just moving into the temple. Maybe I had already moved in. And this was always later in 1975. And he looked at me and he said, my name was Lon. He said, Lon, you're becoming a monk. Like, what could be worse? And I said, Dad. In America we say Dad, and father. Look, let's be reasonable. You know me. I used to be a monkey. And now you're accusing me of becoming a monk. Now tell me, my dear father, what do you prefer? A monkey or a monk? So he actually thought about it for a moment, scratched his head. Monkey. So, those of us who are not so fortunate to be brought up in Bharatvarsha, the holy land of India, we had quite a lot of challenge to become even like human, just becoming a monk or becoming a Hare Krishna person. So I'll really end now with this. Ironically, I didn't. You have the verse was still there. The actual central verse that I wanted to speak about, I didn't even quote it. So it's Labak Sadurabha Midam Sambhavanti. Help me know. I have it here. Okay, 1 second. It's not coming. We'll just recite that and then we can have a couple of quick questions. I'll try to answer this very brief. I really try. We can all chant in unison, okay? Ladva Sadula Bamidam Bahu Samvavante Manushamartadam Nityam Api Hadiraha Purnam Yatetana Patetan Vichayavan Nishayasaya Shayaka. So this was supposed to be the introduction, but just as well as the conclusion. Translation: after many births and deaths, one achieves the rare human form of life, which although temporary, affords one the opportunity to attain the highest perfection. Thus a sober human being should quickly endeavor for the ultimate perfection of life, as long as his body, which is always subject to death, has not fallen down and died. After all, sense gratification is available even in the most abominable species of life, whereas Krishna consciousness is possible only for the human being. We could say human being includes demigods and 400,000. It's got to be demigods because there's no other numbers given for substitute for demigods. So, on that note, that's Jeep Juggle. Well, they say, in New York we used to say, wake up and die right. So we thought it was funny to say it, but it's actually a very serious message. Wake up and then we'll hear about the art of living, what about the art of dying? So it's very important. So we can turn on some lights here and thank you. So if anyone, we'll try to make it very brief. If anyone has a brief question, you have a movable mic?
Yes. I have a loud voice. So Maharaj, you explained animals, they have to act, they have no free will, they act according to the laws of nature. Then a human who doesn't understand the goal of human life, they act like animals, and in that sense they're even worse than animals. On the other hand, we're instructed, we have to respect everyone. So how do we balance the objective vision that these people are acting worse than animals and at the same time have the mentality to respect them?
Is everyone here? You got a question? Well, the preacher discriminates. The preacher sees God, he sees the devotees of God. What's the first? Adine Ishu. How does it start again?
He respects the Lord.
Ishvara Adine Ishu. Balashi Ishu. So he sees basically 4 categories. So what Murli Bhattacharya was referring to, it depends if they're, the 4 categories is God, the Lord, Krishna, Narayan, Lord Vishnu. The next is the devotees of the Lord, Adineshu. And then the next one is the innocent, Balisheshu. They'll say all kinds of nonsense and they'll advertise their ignorance sometimes, but they're innocent. They're not, they're not defiant. They just they haven't gotten the mercy of technology. And the rest is Visatsu, the mania, those who are really they hate God. They just they may even be on the spiritual path, but not just impersonal, but real Mayavad, like to the nth degree, and they just insist that that Krishna is Maya. They say like that. So anyway, we externally we have to try to be perfect gentlemen and try, ladies and gentlemen, see how nice gentlemen I am, including the ladies. You have to respect everybody, but we don't want to associate too closely with the demoniac, those who will only hurt us, unless we're so powerful people that we could reform them. In vain his foes against him weep. He makes them yield to virtue's price, and melts, and melts, and melts their fury down to dust. That's Handel's Messiah, describing what would be a David, his 10,000, slew 10,000. Sorry about that. So there are people, even in the Christian tradition, describing some biblical character who had that ability to melt the aggressor's heart. So preaching mostly is directed towards the Bali Sheshu, is directed towards those who listen. And okay, so is that okay? All right, anybody else have any questions? Yes, probably.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the class knowledge. So you mentioned about the importance of the human form of life, and you also mentioned how it took you a little while, even after you heard it from Prabhupada. And we were also hearing from Ram Sharan Prabhu in the introduction that you were part of the first match, matchless game. Just wondering if you could share your fondest memories of Prabhupada, and how was it a sudden change or was it a gradual change? And if you could share.
I did mention a certain, we can call it a bright moment. It's not like I all of a sudden surrendered and became devotee, but I was quite a sight, and I had a muskrat coat down to my ankles. It's starting to be cold in New York, and that was the style for the hippies, because you can get it for $10 or $20. You can get these coats from the 1920s and 1940s. So that was, and I would see Prabhupada in a muskrat coat. And I had a Lord Shiva's third eye on my forehead. I got it at the psychedelic depression for about 12 cents or so. It was a self-adhesive, like whatever you call it, decal or something. Stuck it on my forehead. I thought it was really cool. And then I had big hairs. I was only 20 years old, but I looked like about 40. So, and in that wild appearance, I used to, especially after I took the drugs, the LSD, then I became quite zany, quite shocking, and Prabhupada didn't flinch. My material father, poor old Herb, he got frightened when he saw me. He said, "Go away, I'll call the police." And Srila Prabhupada, if anybody, I have some printouts here of, they don't cost anything, I'm not selling them. It's a two-sided printout of some of the more interesting encounters I had with Srila Prabhupada. So there's one to a family, but anyway, you don't have to take it, but okay, let's see when I finish we can give this out so it's not distracting. So, I mean, it's a whole story to tell, and everybody's getting nervous if I talk too long. But I was just very fortunate, we're all fortunate just to be in contact with Prabhupada, even if it's after his physical departure. We have Prabhupada's books. But I was especially fortunate, I think, because somehow the Lord in my heart, guided me to 645 East 9th Street. My landlady was Mrs. Fiedler, an old Jewish lady, and the rent was quite expensive, $40 a month. That was not, for that neighborhood, it was maybe the highest rent in the whole neighborhood. I saw in the East Village, I saw apartments as low as $12 a month. If you go all the way between Avenue C and East River. So anyway, somehow I had this impulse to leave out of Brooklyn and go to Manhattan, and I found that apartment. It was on between Avenue B and C. B and C, and then Tompkins Square Park. Most of you have heard of Tompkins Square Park. Anyone does not know Tompkins Square Park? What is it? That's where Prabhupada began the chanting in the Western world of Hare Krishna, Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And still to this day, there's like a commemorative plaque on the tree. I hope it's still there. Where Prabhupada started the chanting in Tompkins Square Park. So I lived half a block away from Tompkins Square Park. And I would have to walk through Tompkins Square Park to go to the Polish restaurant to get cheap pierogies and Polish food. And I'd have to also walk to go to the train to go to different college to cut my classes and sit in the sugar bowl instead of going to class. So I can talk Prachalpa with so many others. And do all the nonsense. So anyway, I won't go through the incident, but one time when I was walking through the park, I encountered the first kirtan, one of those. Prabhupada was playing on some kind of a drum, got it nice and donated it, throwing it to rug on the floor. And I took that in. But my memories of my encounter with Prabhupada was at 26 seconds. Much more than Tompkins Square Park. That's where I really, one leads to the other, go to the weekend parties and, you get some flyer or some type of invitation and word of mouth. Anyway, it was within walking distance. It didn't take very long to walk from my apartment to 26 2nd Avenue. And I used to go around and look, Satsuma has actually printed this in Planting the Seed. I have about a page there. So I was, is anyone still it's not about me, it's about Prabhupada's mercy and Prabhupada's tolerance and what he had to work with, an army of monkeys. So I was going there when it was actually matchless gifts. I saw that. Empty matchboxes with varnished pictures of John Wayne and even earlier, going back to the 30s and the 40s, of Hollywood stars and all that. You know Bollywood, but we also have the original Hollywood, California. It's not all Bollywood. Hollywood came from Bollywood. Bollywood came from Hollywood. America, jive! So anyway, when Prabhupada kept that sign, matchless gifts, but it had a play on words. Instead of boxes without matches, it was actually unequal gifts, the best gifts you could be giving anybody. And I started coming, and it was before ISKCON was started. Hardly anyone was in the building. I mean, it was in July of 1966. I heard the famous poet Allen Ginsberg chanting in his own way, saying, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And he couldn't play the harmony, he was just having a drone go. So I heard that he shared a concert with the Thugs in Greenwich Village in some cafe. And, I thought it was fun and funny. But it didn't make me chant, it just, moved along to other music. basements. But then when I heard Srila Prabhupada, who called Swamiji, chant, I started chanting right away. This is vouchsafed what's in Chaitanya Charitamrita, how the more advanced the better. Others will start chanting just in his presence, but to speak of hearing and chanting. So there's so much potency with Swamiji, the Prabhupada's chanting, that I actually started chanting. And if my host doesn't mind, I'm going to go on for a little while. And if anyone needs to, stretch out or take prasad or do something, just you can get up and go. I won't be offended. I hope I'm not offending you. So I'll try not to go too long. But you got me started, so I feel for it. So where was I just now? The potency of pure devoted chanting. I went to my friend Ira Shapiro. He had lots of Jewish people in there. He was about a block away, I think, on First Avenue. And he had a nice apartment. He was expert in remodeling. And I took that LSD. I was very crazy. And I would just try to preach all nonsense, basically. A little bit Krishna, and he gave me a guitar. He said, Lon, don't preach, chant. It's like occupational therapy. So I started playing the guitar and chanting Hare Krishna, and they all joined in. So I was performing kirtan by Prabhupada's potency. Through me, it was making me chant. And as crazy as I was performing kirtan. And I even one time sat down on the kitchen floor of Allen Ginsberg. He was very famous even in those days. I sat down on his floor and I started having kirtan. He's clapping my hands. And the famous poet, he comes up and he has these little finger cymbals. And he starts dancing, and so I had kirtan. I induced Allen Ginsberg to participate in my kirtan. This was Prabhupada's kirtan, Lord Chaitanya's kirtan. So it was, kind of wild. And there were various situations where Srila Prabhupada, I can't say he had to deal with me. It was just by his mercy he chose to deal with me rather than reject me. And that probably applies to a number of other wild people in those days. Is there time for you to mention a couple of encounters? You might not take advantage because, bye, you ain't going to be alone much longer. So, I don't want to be melodramatic, but Niyamana. So, the first story I would always tell, because it's very short, which is an advantage, especially right now. That I was up all night, which was pretty typical, and I was walking the streets and going into people's houses I didn't know. But they were also on LSD, so they didn't know that I didn't know them. And they didn't know whether they knew me or they didn't know me. And at one place they were painting the walls, and I just grabbed the brush and wildly painted the walls and splattering the walls. I was having so much fun. And I continued my merry way, my usual route to go to Swami Bhakti Vedanta's storefront temple, that's what it was called. So I go there, and it was not really much later than 6. He was doing Bhagavatam class early. Those days, early. And then, but I was on LSD, I had my outfit and everything. And also I had that wild look in my eyes. So when I showed up, he touched me immediately. You remember what he said? Ron, did you take LSD? I don't mean to imitate, but it was more or less like that. He was interrupted the class of Bhagavatam to arrest me, to stop me, he didn't want me to come in and just, because I already had another experience, I don't have time to explain that. He caused some disturbance in his apartment. And it was so gentlemanly, so cultured, so kind, the way he got me to go. So in this instance, I said, "No, Swamiji." Now I wasn't exactly lying because I didn't take it the night before, but I took an overdose, so it was actually still very much under the effect of the drug. And some may not have any idea what LSD does to you, but it's not so much physical, it does it in the brain and the mind. It's psychedelic, it's hallucinations. So, speaking of hallucinations, after I said no, Swamiji, I started walking towards Prabhupada. But because of the LSD, I thought the floor was going up and down. So I was walking up and down. And Prabhupada was not giving a class, he was just looking at me. And then I came in for a landing right at Prabhupada's lotus feet. And by the Lord in my heart somehow guided me, shut up. Don't say anything else. The Super Soul doesn't talk like that. But, just be peaceful. And the class went on. And I didn't get thrown out, and I didn't miss the class. Don't ask me to recall what Prabhupada said. My mind was elsewhere. But I did remember that in one class, this could have been before I took the LSD, he gave that verse when he took the class, and he explained that, and that was a great step forward. I think I mentioned that, it was a great step forward for me. And there were other occasions which were pretty wild, like I challenged Srila Prabhupada. What is this illicit sex? It's like my father was telling me, you see, like father like son. My father was saying, you're becoming a monk. It's like horrible. So I asked Prabhupada, what is this illicit sex? How can you be demanding something so impractical, where you know illicit sex? So Prabhupada said, illicit sex is sex outside of marriage. No muss, no fuss. There's a little more to it than that. But that's what I was ready for, I suppose. I was hardly ready for that. And I started getting nervous about it and started challenging when is it sex and when is it really sex. And you just go to the justice of the peace and you get some paper that you're doing the same thing. And I was quite critical. And Prabhupada was so kind. He just said, you just think about what I told you, and you come back tomorrow and we can discuss some more. Fortunately for both of us, I never picked up on that theme again. But and then things got really wild. I'll just cut to the chase and mention the most dramatic incident, which some of you have heard about 10 times. But that I was. I ran away from my own apartment. I won't tell you why. I ran away from my own apartment. 6:45 East Street. And there I was, just like the Bob Dylan song, like a rolling stone with no direction home. How does it feel to be on your own? Like a rolling stone, no direction home. That was my situation. Bob Dylan really caught it. Bob Dylan, by the way, some of you heard of Bob Dylan. Right? Nobody knows Bob Dylan. So he was very, very famous. He was almost as famous as the Beatles. They were friends also. And he actually visited the Henry Street Temple. And my godbrother, Agni-Dev Prabhu, I don't have time to explain, but he dealt with him, and he was very cool, Agni-Dev. He didn't announce the devotees. Bob Dylan said, he said, hey, you look just like Bob Dylan. And Bob Dylan said, yeah, everybody says I look like Bob Dylan. He was Bob Dylan. And Agni-Dev Prabhu was so cool. He was so much south-pop there. He didn't announce, but he looked at Bob Dylan and said, I know who you are. And he let Bob Dylan peacefully take his prasad in the basement of the Henry Street Temple. So anyway, Bob Dylan wrote that song at the Rolling Stone, and that was the situation. So I was out in the street with no direction home. I didn't even know how to get home. I was so disoriented. I really was mixed up. I even, one time when I thought I could fly, and I jumped off a roof. And I got a little bit hurt. Fortunately, the roof wasn't that high. It was a subway station. So anyway, I'll just end with this incident that I did have one direction home, 26 Second Avenue. And somehow or another I was able to find my way there. And came and said, Swamiji, I'm like you. I go out and do Krishna, Om, Shiva, Krishna. I'm spreading the message, I'm spreading the word. And I work hard all day long and nobody gives me any money. I can't maintain. And Prabhupada went, what a pathetic case. He didn't say that, but that was the move. And then he became very serious. And he said, simply join us. We will solve all your problems. And then this is very controversial, but I would say in front of the deities that he handed me a dhoti or on some cloth with the idea that I should put that on. And that got me really confused. I didn't know how to deal with it, and I started backing up, and he said, I'm not quite ready, and Swamiji followed me to the door. He put his hand on the door frame. Tear was coming out of his eye, and he said with all emotion, he said, please come back. Like that. The Pesha Pandit used to make fun of me for saying, yeah, I know it's just Prabhupada. Prabhupada asked me to join him, and he just ran away, and I was a loser. But I don't feel I was a loser. It was unfortunate that I was not quite ready, not just from my point of view, but I think Krishna arranged that I could have committed huge offenses if I would have accepted Prabhupada's invitation. But Prabhupada was willing to take that risk to have me, to protect me, and have me there. So as soon as I got out in the street, it was a rough neighborhood at that time, the Lower East Side. There was a bunch of hoods. Hoods means like delinquents, and they had the black leather jackets and all that. And they came up and said, okay, give us your money. And I was so spaced out, I didn't feel any fear or anything. I didn't know what was going on. I was on acid. So I said, I don't have any money. Like it was like a sing-song. And then one of them came up and gave me a big push. And then I noticed the other one was coming with a big knife. So I guess that was a token chastisement for hurting the feelings of the pure devotee. I'm not accepting it. That's the only way I can interpret it. And then the only quick sequel is just to make it end on a happy note. I did come back. I didn't come back just at that moment. And it took me 9 years to actually join by moving into the Boston Temple. But there's a little follow-up to that I was put in a mental institution. You may have heard of Bellevue. It's iconic. It should be in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Among mental institutions, I am Bellevue. Vibhuti, So anyway, I was there. I'm an alumnus of Bellevue. And for 3 days I went to a high-class place, which was sort of fun. And then I somehow talked my way out of it, and I was able to be released. And I went to San Francisco and all that. But as soon as I got out of the mental, I made a beeline, as I always do, a beeline right to 26th Avenue. I always do that. So I walk in the temple room, and we're almost there, folks. I walked in the temple room, and what do I see? Who is crazy? Who is crazy? Who is crazy? Who is crazy? There were hardly any books around, so they used the shelves for the matchless gifts, and they put the same book over and over again. Who is crazy? Who is crazy? And I was just coming from the crazy house. So I said, oh, they knew I was coming. Special greeting just for me. So I said, okay, thank you. I should have grabbed one of the books, but I just walked upstairs to Prabhupada's apartment, Swamiji's apartment, on the second floor. That was the protocol. He just wanted everyone to come up and see him personally. Excuse me. And so I walked in for some other devotees who were there, or actual devotees, I was hippie. So I walked in, and I didn't have my fur coat anymore. I lost that. I didn't have my long hair. When I was in the Bellevue, one German inmate, he thought he was Hitler or something. So he told the barber, he said, "This is very ugly. Cut off his hair." You can see how Super Soul arranges things. So I didn't want to lose my beautiful long hair, but before I knew what was happening, I had hair like this, a little longer, very ordinary looking hair. And the beard also came off. I got fleeced. So anyway, you see how it's Krishna's arrangement. When I got out of the mental institution, I went to Prabhupada, walked into his apartment, and he smiled ear to ear. He said, "Now you look very nice." And he was so happy. So thank you, Erzatz Hitler. Bogus Hitler, thank you. So these are some of my wild times. And I could say some more. So if anyone would like, this is a little summary. One to a family, please. And, if they want, if they're not interested, they don't have to take it. All right, so it's gotten late, so thank you so much for your kind attention and for your patience. Letting me go overtime. Tomorrow, of course, is the Great Rath Yatra on 5th Avenue in New York. And I hope many of you will be for that. I'm not that far away. And come down 5th Avenue. It's going to be, what I saw in the weather, it's going to be quite chilly, although the sun should be out. So be prepared for about 60 degrees. Unless there was a mistake that I was getting the wrong city. It said New York City and it said Saturday like 60 degrees. So that's kind of chilly. So see you there. Don't freeze. Be happy. Chant and dance. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki Jai. Shri Radha Govinda ki Jai. Nice to meet you.